Hi folks, this is Hannah. I just wanted to go over some voting information for those of you who may be voting in New Mexico for the first time this year and just kind of show you what I usually do before I go to the poll so that I have all my research done in advance before. Um, the first time I think I went and voted when I was 18. I was surprised at how many extra questions there were on the ballot, right? It's not just the candidates, it's also, judicial retention questions, there's constitutional amendments, there's bond questions, and even in this case, in this year, there's the mill levy questions. If you are in um, Bernalillo County, you'll see those too. So it's a good idea to do this research before you go to the poll so that you have a chance to really make sure you can get all the information about those questions before. One thing I want to emphasize with you is yes, there's a lot of attention in this election writing, obviously, on the national level elections or the statewide elections that are happening. But at the same time, sometimes the down ballot questions, the folks who are at your county level or the constitutional amendments, things like that, are going to have a really big impact on your day-to-day world. Sometimes even more so than those questions that are at the national level. And so those are obviously super important too. It all is. So I just want to make sure to emphasize it. If you do your research in advance, then when you get to the polling location, you won't be surprised by the questions that are on the ballot, and you can vote, all the way down on the things that matter to you. So I just want to show you kind of where to find some of that information. So first place I always go is nnvote.org, which is the Secretary of State's website. And that has some really helpful voter information. There's a resource guide that answers some key questions about voting. You can register to vote, although at this point, October 8th was the deadline to register online for this election. So if you want to register to vote for this election, you need to either go to your county clerk's office or look up a polling location that has same-day registration. If it's early voting or on election day, it should be all polling locations that would accept same-day registration. But just make sure to keep that in mind. If you fill this out online right now, it's not going to make you eligible to vote in this election. Then there is this portal right here, which I'm actually going to show you because it's super helpful. You look up your own voter registration information, your voting location, your sample ballot, and that is what is most helpful for expecting what you will see when you get to the polling location, is if you pull that in advance. If you want to request an absentee ballot, so for those of you who may be away at college and if you didn't update your voter registration before and need to request an absentee ballot, the deadline is coming up. It's a couple days away, so make sure that you do that as soon as possible and before October 22nd for requesting an absentee ballot for New Mexico. Okay, so if you click on this Find My Registration and Election Information, it's going to take you to a site where you input your information. And I've already done that to pull up my voter registration information. And then this first page it takes you to will show you all of the voting districts that you're in. And then if you go to My Polling Location, one of the things that's really nice about New Mexico is you can actually vote at any polling location in your county. And so this will show you the polling locations that are in your county. And for early voting or election day voting, you can pick any of those locations, which is so convenient. We're very lucky to have that, in my opinion. So if you go to the early vote site, if you want to do that, early voting does start today. Expanded early voting starts today. There's been early voting at the county clerk's office already. But if you click on that, it's going to give you all of the expanded early voting sites in your county that you would be eligible to vote at. And with those, it'll provide the address, it'll provide a description of where in the building you will find the polling location. And then under special instructions, you'll see the days and hours that that polling location is open. A lot of these, it looks like, are open either Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday from 10 to 7. Some of them have different hours, so just make sure you take a look at that before you go. For election day vote sites, all voting locations will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And again, if you click on that option, the election day vote sites may be a little bit different than the early voting sites, but you can go to that to find the eligible locations where you can go and vote. Then if you go to My Sample Ballot, you can actually download your personal sample ballot. So that's going to pull in all of the questions based on the districts that you are in for your ballot. And so just click on this View Sample Ballot and that will open up a PDF document. So I've already done that and pulled up my sample ballot. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of questions on the ballot this year. I saw on the news they actually had to change the font size on the ballot to fit everything on there. There's a lot. So that's why you want to make sure you do your research before you go to the polling location. So there's going to be the things that you expected to see. The major elections are on there, but then there's also there's judicial retention questions, there's constitutional amendments, there's state and county bond questions, and then one that was at least seemed newer for me. I'm sure I've seen them before, but there was mill levy questions as well. So you want to do your research on all of those types of things before you go to the poll. So I wanted to show you some of the sites that I like to use for that. And these are either official state of New Mexico sites or nonpartisan sites that I use, but you can also use, whichever ones that you find useful. So for judicial retention questions, I use the Judicial Performance Evaluation Commission site. This was created by the Supreme Court to, it has it right here, improve the performance of judges and provide information for voters. Judges have to receive 57% voter approval in order for them to remain in their position. So when you come to this site, and I'll put the link with this video, you can either search by your zip code or look up a judge directly, or you can just click all 2024 evaluations and see a list of all of the evaluations, and they will have the level of the court that judge sits on, and then a list of the judges. And under the recommendation section, you can see what the recommendation is. In some cases, they may have had insufficient time to evaluate. If you click on the judge's name, you can actually look at the evaluation information. So they will provide a summary of the evaluation scores. They'll tell you about that person's experience and education, and then you can actually see the results of the ratings in their evaluation. So this is really helpful, and I try to spend a little bit of time looking up every judge that's going to be on my ballot to make sure that I'm looking at what the recommendations are, and not just that column on this page, but I do actually go in and open each of them up and skim through what the information that they provide. And that way I feel like I at least know something about those judges when I'm voting whether or not to retain them. And then another thing that you'll see on your ballot is there's constitutional amendments this year. And so the New Mexico Legislative Council Service puts out a document that has arguments for and against the constitutional amendments that we will see on our ballot this year. So if you go to the nmlegis.gov site, you can find this. I will also provide this link, but you can just click on the 2024 one here. And here is a document that has a summary of arguments for and against. And so this will summarize each constitutional amendment. They'll give you the full text that you're going to see on the ballot, a summary, and then background information and then arguments for and against each one. So you can read this whole document, or you can just look at the summaries or the arguments for and against, or you can look at other there's other voting guides out there that have taken this information and summarized it even further. So I'm going to show you one of those, but this is really helpful if you want to look in detail at those constitutional amendment questions and how they will impact you. So one voter guide that I like to use personally is the League of Women Voters. They put out voter guides for the whole state. So there's a central New Mexico one, there's a northern, and there's a southern New Mexico one. And these are really helpful to kind of see all the questions you're going to have on the ballot and the different people who are running, and you can get some information from them. So if you're not sure if the League of Women Voters is a site you want to use, you can look at their About Us information and see, kind of what they do. They are a nonpartisan organization. They mention in here, though, if you look at this, that they also do advocate for certain issues. And so if you want to know what they are advocating for, you can look at the League positions and read that and see kind of what the League of Women Voters is advocating on. And that's always good information to know with any source that you're using for voting information. What is the motivation behind the source? And so that's your research to do. It's your decision to make on which sources you use to make your decisions. This is just an example of one that is nonpartisan, and you all will need to do your own research and make your own decisions on that. But if you go onto this page and go to the voter guide, this is where you're going to be able to see the detailed information. And this is a very long document because it has information on multiple counties. So a lot of the questions that are in this voter guide are not going to be on your ballot because it's going to show multiple different voting districts, but you can skim to the pieces that are going to affect you directly. This has information about who can vote, registering to vote, all of that kind of information. So you can review that. And then it also has the polling location information. Once you get past that, you'll start getting to the actual questions on the ballot. And when you have the folks who are representing New Mexico, you're going to actually see questions that the League of Women Voters put out, and then you'll see the candidates' response. And you'll see a lot of candidates did send their responses in. Sometimes folks didn't, and that's fine. You can research them somewhere else. But if you look through and read up on these, you'll be able to see the information that these people did provide back to the League of Women Voters for this voter guide. And so that's going to be, you're going to get into then all of the state and senator and representative questions as well. So like I said, this guide is very long because you're going to have all of these different districts in here, but you can jump to your district and read up on your people or do like a document search. And then if you go down, it's on like page 50 something. Yeah, so here you get to the constitutional amendments. And as I mentioned, the League of Women Voters has taken the information provided from the Legislative Counsel Service in this document and summarized it further. So you can also look here and get information that was still provided from the same source. It's just summarized further. And look at the questions for and against, or sorry, the arguments for and against the constitutional amendment questions that are on the ballot this year. Then after that, you'll get to the bond questions. And on this, they've provided a summary of what a bond question is, how it's going to impact you, and then it'll provide the language of the bond question that you would see on your ballot. And then there are both state and county bond questions. So you'll want to do your research on both. Then you get to City of Albuquerque questions. If you're voting in Bernalillo in the City of Albuquerque, then there's charter amendment questions too. So you get information and analysis and arguments for and against the city charter amendment questions. Or if you're in a different county, you might have things like, in this case, like Valencia County has a flood control authority question. So lots of information in this guide. There's other guides out there too, or other sources of information. So make sure that you do your research in advance, and you do your own research and make decisions about, whether the sources for those are sources that, you trust. That's your choice. So I hope everyone goes out and votes if you're eligible, and enjoy that. It's part of our, our civic duty to participate in elections. And like I said, there's some of these questions on the ballot that you may not necessarily be expecting, but you should definitely do your research on because they could have a large impact on you. So you just want to make sure that you're informed when you go and vote. All right, thank you.